The transport ship docked at Harmony Prime with a soft hiss. Emma Parks stood near the window, looking out at the massive space station. Lights blinked everywhere. Ships of all sizes moved in and out like bees around a hive. She had never seen anything like it. Her brother Kevin stood beside her. He was 2 years older, taller, and always acted like he knew everything. But right now, even he looked a little nervous. "Ready?" he asked. Emma nodded. She picked up her bag and followed the other passengers off the ship. The Galactic Unity Academy was the most famous school in the known galaxy. Students came from over 200 different species to study here. It was a place of learning, of diplomacy, and of preparing young beings to become leaders. Emma and Kevin were the first humans ever accepted as exchange students. That made them special. It also made them targets. As they walked through the station halls, Emma noticed the stairs. Aliens of all shapes and sizes stopped to look at them. Some whispered to each other. A tall creature with blue skin and no eyes turned its head as they passed. A group of small, furry beings scurried away quickly. Emma kept her face calm. She had learned long ago that showing fear only made things worse. A Serani teacher named Instructor Velix met them at the entrance to the academy. He was tall and thin, with bones that looked like they might snap in a strong wind. His skin was pale purple, and his large eyes blinked slowly as he looked down at the two humans. "So," he said, his voice cold, "you are the Terrans." "Yes, sir," Kevin said politely. "Thank you for having us." Velix made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We shall see if thanks are deserved. Follow me." He turned and walked away. Emma and Kevin exchanged a look, then followed. The academy was beautiful. High ceilings stretched up toward artificial skylights that showed images of different planets. Gardens filled with strange plants lined the walkways. Students moved in groups, talking and laughing in languages Emma did not understand. But she noticed something else too. The way students moved out of the path of certain groups. The way some walked with their heads down while others walked like they owned the place. There was a pecking order here, just like in every school on Earth. Velix showed them to their dormitory and left without another word. Kevin sighed as the door closed behind him. "Well, he seems nice," Kevin said sarcastically. Emma smiled a little. "I've had worse teachers." They unpacked their things and prepared for their first day. Emma tried not to think about what might happen. She told herself it would be fine. She had survived worse than a new school. She had no idea how wrong she was. The first 3 days passed without major incident. Emma attended her classes, kept quiet, and tried to learn the layout of the station. She noticed that students were divided into groups based on their species. Some species were clearly considered more important than others. At the top were the Veloci. They were insect-like creatures, tall and strong, with hard shells and sharp mandibles. They moved in groups and everyone else moved out of their way. Emma learned that they came from a powerful empire and considered themselves superior to all other species. On the 4th day, they noticed her. Emma was walking alone through a corridor after her last class. She had stayed late to ask her instructor a question, and the hallways were nearly empty. Her footsteps echoed on the smooth floor. She heard the clicking before she saw them. That sound of hard legs on metal. She turned and saw 5 Veloci students blocking the path behind her. The leader was taller than the others, with darker coloring and golden bands around his arms. Later, she would learn his name was Chirac. "Human," Chirac said. His voice buzzed strangely. "You are the one from the death world." Emma stopped walking. She turned to face them fully. Her heart beat faster, but she kept her breathing slow and steady. "Yes," she said simply. Chirac moved closer. The other Veloci spread out, surrounding her. She could feel them behind her now, cutting off her escape. Do you know what we do with new students here? Chirac asked. Especially those from lesser planets? No. Chirac's mandibles clicked together. It might have been a smile. We mark them. To show them their place. To remind them that they are nothing. He moved fast. Before Emma could react, one of his sharp claws sliced through the sleeve of her uniform. She felt a sting as it cut the fabric, leaving a symbol carved into the material. A jagged line with two curves. The mark of the lesser. The Veloci waited. Emma knew what they expected. They expected her to cry, to beg, to run away. Every other student they had marked probably did exactly that. Emma looked at the torn sleeve. Then she looked up at Chirac. Is that all? She asked. The clicking stopped. All 5 Veloci went very still. What? Chirac said. I asked if that was all. Are you finished? For a long moment, no one moved. Emma could see the confusion in Chirac's body language. This was not how the game was supposed to go. The prey was supposed to be afraid. But Emma was not prey. She had grown up on Earth. She had learned to face forest fires and wild animals. She had trained in survival since she was old enough to walk. A few bugs with sharp claws did not scare her. You are either very brave or very stupid, Chirac said finally. Emma shrugged. Maybe both. She turned and walked away. She did not run. She did not look back. She kept her steps slow and calm until she turned the corner and was out of their sight. Only then did she let out a long breath. Kevin was waiting for her in the dormitory. He saw the torn sleeve immediately. What happened? He demanded. I got marked, Emma said. She sat down on her bed and examined the damage. Some Veloci students. Their leader is called Chirac. Kevin's face went hard. I'll handle this. No. Emma looked up at him. You won't. Not yet. Emma, I mean it, Kevin. Let it go for now. Kevin stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. But Emma saw the look in his eyes. He was angry. He was planning something. And somewhere deep inside, so was she. Not revenge. That was not her way. But she knew this was not over. Chirac had expected her to break, and she had not. That would make him angry. That would make him dangerous. She lay back on her bed and stared at the ceiling. On Earth, humans had a saying, do not poke the bear. But the Veloci did not know what a bear was. They did not know what Earth was really like. They had read files and statistics, but they did not understand. They had marked a girl from a death world, and they had no idea what that meant. News traveled fast on Harmony Prime. By the next morning, everyone knew that a human had been marked and had not cried, had not begged, had simply walked away like nothing happened. Emma noticed the change immediately. In the hallways, students looked at her differently. Some laughed and pointed. They thought she was crazy or stupid. But others watched her with something else in their eyes. Something like fear. In her morning class, Emma sat in her usual seat near the back. A small creature with gray fur and large ears sat down next to her. It was a Navali, one of the smallest species at the academy. Emma had seen them before, always moving quickly, always keeping their heads down. This one looked at her with wide eyes. You really did not cry? It whispered. Emma shook her head. No. The Navali blinked rapidly. But the Veloci, they are so big. So scary. How? Emma thought about how to answer. Finally, she said, where I come from, there are things much scarier than the Veloci. The Navali looked confused but said nothing more. The instructor entered and class began. After lunch, Emma went to the station's library. It was a massive space filled with floating data screens and reading pods. She found a quiet corner and began to study. She had been there about an hour when someone sat down across from her. Emma looked up and saw a human girl. She had long black hair and wore glasses. Her uniform was neat and perfect, without a single mark. "Hi," the girl said nervously. "I'm Grace. Gracekin." Emma's eyebrows rose. "Another human? I thought Kevin and I were the only exchange students." Grace shook her head. "I'm not an exchange student. I was born on the Luna colony. My parents work here on the station. I've been at the academy for 2 years." "2 years?" Emma leaned forward. "And you never introduced yourself?" Grace looked down at her hands. I keep quiet about being human. Most students think I'm from a different colony. A safer one." She paused. "I heard what happened to you. With Chirac, word really does travel fast." "You should not have done that," Grace said quickly. "You should have cried. Pretended to be scared. Now Chirac is angry. He thinks you embarrassed him. He will try to hurt you." Emma studied the other girl. She could see the fear in Grace's eyes. This was someone who had spent 2 years hiding. 2 years pretending to be something she was not. "I can't pretend to be weak," Emma said softly. "That's not who I am. Then you will get hurt." Emma smiled slightly. "Maybe, but I've been hurt before. I survived." Grace stared at her like she was speaking a different language. Then she stood up quickly. "Be careful," Grace said. "Chirac's family is very powerful. They don't just bully students. They destroy them." She walked away, disappearing between the floating screens. Emma sat alone for a long moment, thinking about what Grace had said. Then she went back to her studies. That evening, she met Danny Cho. He found her on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. He was a tall man with short gray hair and a face that looked like it had seen many battles. He wore a simple black uniform with no markings. "Emma Park," he said. It was not a question. Emma turned to look at him. "Who are you?" "Danny Cho. I work for Earth Command. I'm stationed here as a military liaison." He stood beside her, also looking out at the stars. "I heard about your little adventure with the Veloci. Does everyone on this station gossip?" Danny smiled slightly. "Only about interesting things. A human girl who faces down 5 Veloci and asks if that's all." "That's interesting." Emma said nothing. "I want you to know something," Danny continued. "I'm here if you need help. But I'm also here to tell you that Earth Command has no plans to interfere. Whatever happens next, you handle it yourself." "Why?" Danny turned to look at her directly. "Because we need them to learn. The galaxy thinks humans are weak, primitive. They think we come from a dangerous planet, but they don't understand what that really means. If we step in and solve your problems, they learn nothing. But if you handle this yourself," he smiled, "then they learn everything." Emma thought about this. It made sense in a terrible way. She was not just a student. She was a test case. A demonstration. "No pressure," she said dryly. Danny laughed. It was a short, rough sound. "You'll be fine. I read your file. Survived a wildfire at 8. Fought off wild dogs at 10. Completed survival training in the Amazon at 14. He shook his head. "Earth does not produce soft children." "No," Emma agreed. "It doesn't." Danny nodded and walked away, leaving her alone with the stars. The next few weeks were difficult. Chirac and his group made Emma's life as hard as they could. They sabotaged her assignments. They spread lies about her. They made sure no other students wanted to be seen with her. Emma endured it all. She fixed her assignments. She ignored the lies. She studied alone and ate alone and walked the halls alone. Kevin tried to help, but she told him to focus on his own classes. This was her battle. At night, she lay in bed and thought about Earth. She remembered the smell of pine trees after rain, the sound of thunder rolling across the mountains, The feeling of cold river water on a hot summer day. Earth was dangerous. Everyone in the galaxy knew that. But they only knew numbers and statistics. They did not understand what it was like to live there. To grow up knowing that the world could kill you at any moment. To learn that survival was not a right, but a skill that had to be earned every single day. One night, in a different part of the station, a young Serani student named Vilik sat in the restricted section of the archives. He was curious about humans. Everyone was talking about the strange girl who did not cry. He wanted to know why he accessed the classified files on Earth. What he found made his blood run cold. The file listed Earth's dangers. Temperature swings from freezing to burning. Violent storms that could destroy entire cities. Earthquakes and volcanoes and floods. Over 8 million species of animals, many of which could kill with claws or teeth or poison. But the worst part was about the humans themselves. They were persistence hunters. They chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Their bodies could repair themselves from injuries that would kill other species. They could eat food that was toxic to most life forms. They even kept some of Earth's dangerous animals as pets, and they had survived. For hundreds of thousands of years, they had survived everything their planet threw at them. They did not become weak. They became stronger. Vilik reached the end of the file. The last paragraph was a warning from a galactic survey team that had visited Earth 50 years ago. Contact with Terrans is not advised. They do not break. They adapt. They overcome. And when they are threatened, they do not run. They fight back with a fury that defies all logic. Handle with extreme caution. Vilik dropped his datapad. His hands were shaking. He understood now. Everyone at the academy thought Emma was just a small, weak girl from a backwater planet. They thought marking her was funny, safe. They had no idea what they had started. The combat assessment was the biggest event of the academy year. Every student had to participate. It was supposed to be a simple test, a chance to show basic defensive skills. Nothing dangerous, nothing deadly, but everyone knew the truth. The assessment was where reputations were made and destroyed, where the strong proved their worth and the weak were humiliated. When Emma saw her name on the match list, her stomach dropped. She was paired against a Gorvani. The Gorvani were massive reptilian creatures, standing over 3 meters tall. Their scales were thick as armor. Their arms could crush metal. In a fair fight, a Gorvani could kill almost any species in the galaxy. This was not a random pairing. Emma knew that immediately. Chirac had arranged this. He wanted to see her broken, and if he could not do it himself, he would let a Gorvani do it for him. Kevin found her in the dormitory that night. His face was pale with anger. "You can't fight a Gorvani," he said. "You need to forfeit. Tell them you're sick. Tell them anything." Emma shook her head. "If I forfeit, they win. Everything I've done means nothing. I'll just be another weak human who ran away." "Emma, this isn't about pride. That thing could kill you. It's a controlled match. There are rules. Rules can be broken. Accidents happen." Kevin grabbed her shoulders. "Please. I can't watch you get hurt." Emma looked at her brother. She saw the fear in his eyes. The love. He was her big brother, and he wanted to protect her. But this was something she had to do alone. "I'll be careful," she said. "I promise." Kevin did not look convinced. But he knew his sister. Once she decided something, nothing could change her mind. The day of the assessment arrived. The combat arena was packed with students from every species. Floating cameras broadcast the matches across the station. Emma stood in the waiting area, stretching her muscles and calming her mind. Grace appeared beside her. The other human girl looked terrified. "I heard about your match," Grace whispered. "Everyone is betting on how long you'll last." Most say less than 30 seconds. What do you think? Emma asked. Grace hesitated. I think you're different. But I don't know if different is enough. Emma smiled. I guess we'll find out. Her name was called. Emma walked out onto the arena floor. The crowd went quiet for a moment, then erupted in noise. Most of it was laughter. Some students pointed at her and made jokes. She was so small, so fragile looking. On the other side of the arena, the Gorvani waited. His name was Torax, and he was enormous. His yellow eyes fixed on Emma like she was a small animal to be crushed. His lips pulled back to show rows of sharp teeth. The referee, a neutral robot, announced the rules. No killing. No permanent injury. Match ends on submission, knockout, or referee stoppage. Both fighters bowed, though Torax's bow was more of a mocking nod. The starting signal sounded. Torax charged immediately. He was fast for his size, crossing the arena in huge strides. His right arm swung toward Emma like a falling tree. She was not there. Emma had moved the instant the signal sounded. Not backward, like everyone expected. Sideways and forward, slipping past Torax's swing by centimeters. She felt the wind of his arm passing over her head. The crowd gasped. Torax spun, confused. Where was she? He spotted her behind him and swung again. Again, she moved, ducking under his arm and sliding between his legs. Before he could react, she was behind him once more. The laughter had stopped. The arena was silent, except for the sound of Torax's frustrated growls. Emma was not trying to hurt him. She was not strong enough for that. But she was fast. She was trained. And she understood something that most species did not know about humans. They were endurance hunters. On Earth, humans had survived by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They could run for hours without stopping. They could keep going long after other animals gave up. And they could do the same in a fight. Torax swung and missed. Swung and missed. Each attack used more energy. Each failure made him angrier and sloppier. Emma kept moving, kept dodging, kept waiting. 3 minutes passed. Then 5. Then 7. Torax was breathing hard now. His movements were slower. His scales were wet with sweat. He had never faced an opponent like this. Everyone else either fought back or gave up. This human just kept moving, kept sliding away, kept watching him with those calm, patient eyes. On the 9th minute, Torax overextended. His right arm swung wide, throwing off his balance. Emma saw the opening. She moved like water. Her hands grabbed his wrist and twisted. Her body turned, using his own momentum against him. She dropped low, pulling his arm down and around. Before he knew what was happening, Torax was on the ground with Emma on top of him. Her arm locked around, his elbow in a position that threatened to snap the joint. The arena exploded with noise. Shock. Disbelief. Few cheers. Torax struggled. But the more he moved, the more pressure built on his elbow. The pain was incredible. He had never felt anything like it. This tiny creature had him trapped, and he could not escape. Submit, Emma said quietly. Only he could hear her. Please. I don't want to hurt you. Torax's pride screamed at him to fight. But his body knew the truth. If he moved wrong, his arm would break. And this human, this small, weak-looking human, would be the one to break it. I submit, he growled. Emma released him immediately. She stood up and stepped back. The referee announced her victory. The crowd was still in shock. Some students were frozen with their mouths open. Others were looking at their betting records with horror. Emma bowed respectfully to Torax, who was still lying on the ground, staring at her like she was some kind of monster. Then she walked off the arena floor without looking back. Kevin was waiting for her in the hallway. He pulled her into a tight hug. That was incredible, he breathed. That was absolutely incredible. Emma hugged him back, finally letting herself shake a little. The adrenaline was fading. Her muscles ached. But she had done it. She had won. The moment was interrupted by the sound of clicking legs on metal. Chirac stood at the end of the hallway, his mandibles tight with rage. He had watched his plan fail. He had watched a human defeat a Govani in front of the entire academy. His embarrassment was complete. He stormed toward Emma and shoved her against the wall. "You think you're special?" he hissed. "You're from a backwater rock. You're nothing. Nothing." Emma looked up at him. Her eyes went cold. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she let the mask slip. Let him see what was underneath. "On my backwater rock," she said softly, "we have a saying. Don't start fights you can't finish." Kevin moved to stand beside her. His arms were crossed. His face hard dot at the far end of the hallway. Danny Cho appeared. He said nothing. He just watched. Chirac looked from Emma to Kevin to Danny. Something in his confidence cracked. He stepped back, releasing Emma. "This isn't over," he said. "I know," Emma replied. "But next time, fight me yourself. Stop hiding behind others." Chirac made a sound of pure hatred. Then he turned and walked away, his followers clicking after him. That night, Emma learned that a Veloci ship had entered the system. Chirac's family had been called. The brood of Kethris, one of the most powerful families in the Veloci Empire, was coming to deal with the human problem personally. Emma stared at the message and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Not fear. Fear was for those who did not know what they faced. She felt ready. The Veloci warship arrived at Harmony Prime 3 days later. It was massive and dark, covered in sharp angles and weapon ports. The entire station felt its presence. Students whispered in the halls. Teachers spoke in hushed voices. Matriarch Kethris had come. She was ancient, even by Veloci standards. Her shell was almost black with age, decorated with golden patterns that showed her rank. Her eyes were cold and calculating. She had ruled the brood of Kethris for over 200 years, and in that time, she had destroyed countless enemies. She came with an armed escort of 12 warriors. They marched through the station like they owned it. And in a way, they did. The Veloci Empire was one of the most powerful in the galaxy. Harmony Prime existed partly because the Veloci allowed it to exist. The station council was forced to call an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major species gathered in the diplomatic chamber. Emma and Kevin were ordered to attend as well. They sat in the corner, watching as the future of their education was discussed by beings who barely acknowledged they were there. Matriarch Kethris spoke first. "I am here because of an insult," she said. Her voice was old but strong. "My grandson, heir to the brood, was humiliated by a creature from a primitive world. This cannot stand." The council head, a tall blue being with 4 arms, nodded carefully. "What do you ask, Matriarch?" "I ask that the human students be expelled, returned to their dangerous planet, removed from civilized space where they clearly do not belong." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some representatives looked uncomfortable. Others nodded in agreement. Emma felt Kevin tense beside her. She put a hand on his arm, warning him to stay calm. Grace Kim was called to testify. She stood before the council, her voice shaking, and described what she had seen. The marking, the sabotage, the constant harassment. She showed the security footage that Danny Cho had submitted. Matriarch Kethris waved a claw dismissively. "The strong dominate," she said. "This is the natural order. If humans cannot accept their place, they should return to their death trap of a planet and leave civilization to civilized beings." The chamber doors opened. Every head turned. Even Kethris went still. A human woman walked into the room. She wore a black uniform covered in medals and ribbons. Her hair was gray, pulled back tight. Her face was calm but hard, like stone that had been shaped by centuries of wind. Admiral Jenny Park of Earth Fleet. Emma felt tears sting her eyes. Her mother had come. The Admiral walked to the center of the chamber and stopped. She did not bow. She did not apologize for interrupting. She simply stood there, looking at Matriarch Kethris like she was examining an interesting insect. "I apologize for my late arrival," the Admiral said. Her voice filled the room. "I traveled 14 days through hyperspace when I heard my daughter was being targeted by bullies." Kethris's mandibles clicked angrily. "You dare compare my grandson to? I dare many things." The Admiral did not raise her voice, but somehow it cut through Kethris's words like a blade. "I have fought in 3 interstellar wars. I have commanded fleets that destroyed enemies far more powerful than the brood of Kethris. I did not come here to exchange insults. I came here to provide information." She held up a small device. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a planet, blue and green and white, beautiful and deadly. "This is Earth," the Admiral said. "You call it a death world. You are correct." The hologram changed, showing images and data. Hurricanes tearing across oceans, earthquakes splitting the ground, volcanoes erupting with fire and ash, animals with claws and teeth and poison, plants that could kill with a single touch. "Everything on our planet wants us dead," the Admiral continued. "The weather, the wildlife, the geology, even our own immune system sometimes turn against us. We live on a world that tries to murder us every single day." The images changed again. Now they showed humans, fighting, surviving, building, conquering. And we are still here. We did not become the dominant species on Earth by being weak. We became dominant by being patient, by being stubborn, by refusing to die no matter what our planet threw at us. She turned to look directly at Kethris. "Your grandson marked my daughter. In our culture, that is a declaration of intent, a promise of violence." Emma showed restraint. She did not fight back when she could have. She did not hurt your grandson when she had every right to. The Admiral stepped closer to the ancient Veloci. "I would not have shown such restraint. I would not have been so kind." The chamber was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Kethris stared at the human woman. For the first time in 2 centuries, she felt something she had almost forgotten. She felt uncertain. This was not a primitive creature from a backwater world. This was a predator. A warrior who had seen more battles than most of Kethris's own guards. And she was defending her child with the kind of cold, focused fury that Kethris recognized. It was the same fury she would feel if someone threatened her own brood. "The humans," the Admiral said, "do not ask to be treated as special. We do not ask for protection or privilege. We only ask to be left alone to prove ourselves. But if you continue to target my children," she smiled, and it was not a kind smile, "then you will learn why Earth is classified as a death world. Not because of the planet, because of us." She stepped back and addressed the full council. "I submit the security footage as evidence. I submit my testimony. And I ask this council to make a fair judgment based on the facts, not on the political pressure of one offended matriarch." The council head looked between the Admiral and Kethris. Sweat beaded on his blue skin. "We will take a recess to review the evidence," he said. The recess lasted 2 hours. When the council returned, their decision was clear. Chirac was found responsible for harassment and sabotage. He would be reassigned to a different station, far from Harmony Prime. His marks on his permanent record would follow him for years. The complaint against Emma and Kevin was dismissed. Kethris listened to the verdict without expression. Then she stood and walked toward the exit. She paused beside Admiral Park. "This is not over," she said quietly. The Admiral met her gaze. "No, it isn't. But the next move is yours. Choose carefully." Cathris left without another word. Her guards followed, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. That night, Emma sat with her mother in the observation deck. The stars sparkled outside the window like diamonds scattered across black velvet. "I didn't know if you would come," Emma said. The Admiral put an arm around her daughter. "I will always come. Always. You are my child. Nothing in this galaxy could stop me from protecting you. I didn't need protecting. I could have handled it." Her mother smiled. "I know. That's what makes me proudest. You faced them alone, and you did not break. You did not ask for help. You stood on your own 2 feet and showed them what humans are made of." Emma leaned against her mother's shoulder. "What happens now?" Now you keep going. You finish your education. You show them, every single day, that humans are not weak, that we are not primitive, that we are exactly what they should have expected from a species that conquered a death world." Emma closed her eyes. She felt tired, but also at peace. The worst was over. Chirac was gone. His family had been embarrassed. The galaxy had watched a human woman stare down one of the most powerful beings in known space and not flinch. Things were going to be different now. She could feel it. 6 months had passed and Matriarch Kethris left Harmony Prime. In that time, everything had changed. Emma walked through the academy halls with her head high. Students no longer whispered behind her back. They nodded respectfully as she passed. Some even smiled. The mark on her sleeve had faded, but the memory of what she had done would last forever. She was no longer Emma Park, the strange human from the Death World. She was Emma Park, the girl who faced a Gorvani and won. The girl whose mother stared down a Veloci matriarch. The girl who did not break. Human students were treated differently now. Not just Emma and Kevin, but all of them. Grace Kim had stopped hiding. She walked openly through the station, telling everyone who asked that yes, she was Terran. Yes, she was from Earth. And yes, she was proud of it. Grace had started something called the Terran Cultural Exchange Club. Every week, students from dozens of species gathered to learn about Earth. They watched recordings of Earth animals and gasped at the predators. They listened to Earth music and tapped their appendages to the rhythms. They tried Earth food and made faces at the strange flavors. Most importantly, they asked questions. They wanted to understand. For the first time, the galaxy was curious about humans, instead of afraid or dismissive. Kevin graduated at the top of his class in interstellar diplomacy. The ceremony was held in the main auditorium, with representatives from every species in attendance. When Kevin walked across the stage to receive his certificate, the applause was louder for him than it had been for anyone else. He gave a short speech. Emma sat in the front row, watching her brother with pride. "When we arrived here," Kevin said, "many of you wondered why humans were allowed in. We come from a death world. Our planet is dangerous. Our history is violent. You had every reason to doubt us." He paused, looking out at the crowd. "On Earth, we have an old saying. Walk softly and carry a big stick. It means that true strength does not need to shout. It does not need to prove itself through cruelty or intimidation. It simply exists, quiet and patient, ready to act when needed." Kevin smiled slightly. "My sister taught me that lesson again, right here in this academy. She was marked. She was mocked. She was targeted by those who thought she was weak. And she responded not with violence, but with patience, with endurance, with the quiet strength that comes from surviving a world that tries to kill you every day." He held up his certificate. "I hope that all of us, from every species and every world, can learn from her example." Strength is not about domination. It is about standing firm when others try to push you down. It is about getting up again and again, no matter how many times you fall. The applause that followed was thunderous. Later that night, Emma sat alone on the observation deck. It had become her favorite place on the station. She liked watching the ships come and go, the stars spinning slowly beyond the windows, the endless darkness filled with endless possibilities. Footsteps approached. Emma turned and saw a familiar face. Vilik, the young Sarani student who had read the classified files on Earth. He looked nervous, his thin fingers twisting together. "May I sit?" he asked. Emma nodded, and he sat down beside her. For a while, neither of them spoke. They just watched the stars together. Finally, Vilik broke the silence. "I read your planet's file," he said. "Months ago, I wanted to understand why you did not cry when Chirac marked you." Emma looked at him but said nothing. "The file was terrifying," Vilik continued. "Your planet is like something from a nightmare. Storms and earthquakes and predators everywhere. And the conclusion, the warning about your species." He shivered. "It said that humans do not break, that they adapt, that they fight back." "That's true," Emma said simply. Vilik turned to face her fully. His large eyes were serious. "Is it true that on Earth, you have to fight to survive every single day?" Emma thought about the question. She thought about her childhood, the forest fires, the wild animals, the survival training. But she also thought about the good things. The sunsets over the mountains, the smell of rain on dry earth, the laughter of friends around a campfire. "Not every day," she said finally, "but enough that we learned something important." "What?" Emma smiled. "That surviving isn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about never giving up. It's about getting knocked down 100 times and standing up 101. It's about enduring the worst that life can throw at you and still finding reasons to keep going." Vilik was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I think I understand now," he said. "Why you did not break. Why none of you break. It is not because you cannot feel pain or fear. It is because you have learned to keep going despite the pain, despite the fear." "Yes," Emma said. "That's exactly it." Vilik stood up. He looked down at her with something like respect. "Thank you," he said, "for teaching me, for teaching all of us." He walked away, leaving Emma alone with the stars once more. The next morning, Admiral Park's ship prepared to leave the station. Emma and Kevin stood in the docking bay, saying their goodbyes. Their mother hugged them both tightly. She held on longer than usual, and when she pulled back, there were tears in her eyes. "I am so proud of you," she said. "Both of you. Not because you won. Not because you proved yourself to these people. But because you did it the right way. With patience. With strength. With kindness." She looked at Emma specifically. "You could have fought back. You could have hurt those who hurt you. But you chose not to. You chose restraint. You chose to show them that humans are better than they expected. That is harder than fighting. That is true strength." Emma felt her own eyes grow wet. "I learned from the best," she said. Her mother laughed and hugged her again. Then the Admiral boarded her ship, and the siblings watched it pull away from the station. It grew smaller and smaller until it was just another light among the stars. Kevin put his arm around Emma's shoulders. "Ready to go back?" he asked. Emma nodded, but she did not move right away. She stayed there for a moment longer, watching the place where her mother's ship had disappeared. Things were different now. The galaxy knew about humans. They knew about Earth. They knew that the small, weak-looking beings from the Death World were not so weak after all. But this was just the beginning. More humans would come to the Academy. More would spread across the galaxy, proving themselves one interaction at a time. And slowly, The perception would change. Fear would become respect. Dismissal would become understanding. Emma turned and walked back toward the academy. Her uniform still showed the faded mark on her sleeve. She had never repaired it. She wore it as a reminder of what she had faced, a reminder of what she had overcome, a reminder that she came from a world that tried to kill her every single day, and she was still here. She was still standing. That was what it meant to come from a death world. That was what it meant to be human, and the galaxy was finally beginning to understand.